Welcome, everybody. My name is Todd Johnson. I'm with the University of Wisconsin Extension Service. I'm a land use and community development specialist, work statewide. I'm here on behalf of the City of Altoona to help the community think through some ideas concerning the downtown. And we've got a great group of folks that are helping us tonight. We have Todd Barman, Ed Freer, myself, Ken Saki, Alyssa Centuri, Alex Thill, and Garrett Zostapul. So throughout the evening tonight, you're going to hear their voices and you're going to see some of the work that we did over the last couple of days. I'll just kind of back up a little bit. This process has started a few months ago. We've been working with city staff to learn more about what's going on in Altoona, what has gone on in Altoona, changes going on in Altoona, and the reason why we came here is kind of help bring it all together. And so this is a program offered through the University of Wisconsin-Madison Division of Extension. It's through the Community Development Institute. And so because your county has paid for Community Development Institute resources, you have access to this program called Design Wisconsin. So thank you for that. Here's our agenda. We just did a welcome and a project recap. We're going to talk about downtown Altoona, past, present, and future. We're going to talk about welcoming pathways to Cinder City. And then we're going to move into the remixed downtown of buildings, businesses, and civic spaces. The initial project goal when we were first asked to meet with folks here was to create planning and design alternatives to the downtown and surrounding context that reflects changes to the city ordinance and comprehensive plan that illustrate what future development might look like. And then over the course of the last 48 hours, we've reshaped this and kind of refined it to achieving a critical mass of buildings and businesses in the downtown and to make downtown Altoona a local and regional destination. Just give, again, some more project timeline background. We started meeting with folks in the fall of 2024. We had some initial conversations with city staff and mayor. Moving into the summer, we had several Zoom meetings and I started assembling a design team of professional planners and architects and landscape architects and urban designers who have graciously given their time and expertise and passion to helping Altoona become what it wants to become. In September, we did some site visits. We looked at the study area and we began moving into this last 48 hours of doing a visioning session with a stakeholder group that the community identified. And we did walking tours of the downtown and River Prairie. We drove around, took lots of photos, and got ourselves very familiar with the context. And then we had about 2 hours with a stakeholder group last night, going through some questioning and visioning and trying to get a sense of what the goals are and values are and some more refined and narrow expectations for this project. And then all day today from about 8:30 this morning till about an hour ago, we've been working on putting together what you're going to see in this presentation. All right, so with that, I'm going to pass it on to my friends.
Right. Hello, everyone. My name is Garrett Zostapul. I'm the local community development educator with UW Extension. So I am the boots on the ground and in the connection to the Todds and other folks within UW-Madison. Where we really started today, building upon what we learned yesterday, was thinking about kind of who is Altoona? What is Altoona? And what you see on the screen are some kind of key ideas that we heard from you all, from folks as we went around town. So one of them being, we're not Eau Claire. That became very clear to us that we are something distinct. There's something special that happens here. And the thing that we heard last night that we felt really captured that was big city opportunity, small town feel, right? The connectedness, the walkability, the residentiality of the city of Altoona. And then on the slide, you'll see some images that we also gathered that really speak to kind of who is Altoona in the downtown corridor. We wanted to juxtapose this though, so kind of do some compare and contrast against what people see when you look at Altoona and the way that Altoona tells its own story. So what we found is a variety of different logos and ways of kind of communicating Altoona to, the public from the city to other parties. One of the things that we noticed is the big A is always present. The red is always present. but there's different fonts, there's different kind of accessories to the kind of central story that gets told. And then this morning, I got to work with Alyssa, and we did some kind of internet sleuthing to see if someone was learning about Altoona, right? So listening to what you all shared last night about how do I tell teachers or potential teachers and educators what Altoona is, where Altoona is about, what do we see? And what we found when you look at TripAdvisor, when you're looking, for what is there to do in Altoona, it's mainly River Prairie, which set us into the space of how is it that we tell a different story and come up with a different identity about the downtown corridor that is a place that people want to be, that creates more variety when someone searches, well, what do we do in Altoona? What's going on there? And so what we're kind of providing or, laying the foundation for is a new way of thinking about this particular space and place that honors the past, is respectful of the values that the city has identified, and really looks towards the future. So trying to weave all of these components together. So one of the things that we heard yesterday was the railroad is really important, right? And that's what we kind of consider as the past, as well as a little bit of the future. But really thinking about why Altoona even exists is definitely for that railroad. And one of the things that we heard is that kind of blue collar, neighbors look out for each other spirit continues to be part of the community culture and really is embedded in that early railroad history. We heard that there are values that are about making this a place where people want to raise a family while also protecting the natural and community resources that exist here. So really trying to make this a livable place. And I think that's where Altoona has really positioned itself in the Chippewa Valley, and doing so sustainably as well. So making sure that it's a place that multiple generations can enjoy. So where we really saw the opportunity for downtown Altoona to reconsider itself is under the name of Cinder City. So when we look at the definition of cinders, right? Cinders are what's left in the air after a train has passed through. It's that combination of coal and steam and the flakes that get distributed. We say that we're kind of living in the cinders, right, of the railroad industry, and that we can actually build something from that. And that there's something cool, and we've gathered some images that you see on these slides from local historical documents that really tell a story about who Altoona was and how we take that moving forward. And so that's kind of our pitch, is this idea of downtown Altoona being the Cinder City District, the Cinder City Arts and Food District, some way of really playing with that brand that we already have, especially given that our project was focused on that Spooner Avenue to downtown corridor that we might consider as Cinder City, right between the park, Cinder City days. And so this is right. Yeah, thanks. And so part of what we're considering is how do we take that kind of idea of being cinders, right? Of being something that we can, rebuild from or strengthen, build upon, and really be vibrant in what emerges. This is a slide from Corktown in Detroit. So obviously a different context, but similar. That was their neighborhood right next to the rail yard that is now in this kind of vibrant space. So thinking about what does that look like for Cinder City here in Altoona.
I'm Alyssa Santuri. I'm a local landscape architect. I live in the Eau Claire area. I'm going to talk a little bit about how do we create this brand that Garrett so eloquently just spoke about. When we think about branding, we often think about a logo, but we're going to discuss something called place branding. That's beyond a logo. That's creating an emotional connection for a group of people in a space that has a shared language, a sense of place, and is attractive. Not only because of the critical mass that my team's going to talk about in the subsequent slides, but also because of the look and feel and consistency and connection to the space. This is coupled with a strategic vision, which I would encourage you through stakeholder engagement and other tools like we're doing today in terms of engagement to create a set of guiding principles to shape your vision as you sort of build on this brand that we're suggesting today. And you'll see in the subsequent slides, we were very aware of not giving you options. We didn't want to say, this is it, this is your brand. We're giving you the tools to create this brand and have ownership and buy-in as you move forward. This is more of explicating the process. So how do you create a Cinder City district? So a branded downtown district has a unique identity, cohesive marketing and approach. It's aimed at attracting residents, visitors, and businesses by creating positive perceptions and a strong sense of place. So let's talk about how we could do that. And one way we could do that is branding potential and consistency. So we pretty intentionally used a sort of utilitarian palette here. The point is to show you the consistency of language that can fill your downtown district once those boundaries are established. So, you know, if you have a consistent language in a trash receptacle, site furnishings, welcome banners to the Cinder City district or arts and food district, or however you guys decide you want to brand the area moving forward, it creates a language where people know, oh, this is where I am. I'm within the boundaries of, you know, the Cinder City downtown Altoona district. And something else we wanted to point out here is you continue doing the great things you're doing with public art and some of the initiatives you already have going. That's really powerful and a unique tool to the area. And then we wanted to go through a few ideas, and these are going to be very distinct from one another, but giving you sort of a few different vibes and directions you could go. We're looking for inspiration. So this one relies heavily on the industrial, gritty, sort of steampunk vibes. We kind of played with the idea of with rumps and the nostalgic bean. We've got a little steampunk pig and a steampunk gnome there that could play with the uniqueness of your specific community while capitalizing on the theme. And then some ideas for how you could take this this theme and put it into some promotional marketing or signage, just another way to continue the language through the district. And if you wanted to go in a different direction, you know, you could look at Cinder City as taking inspiration from the container yard. You'll see some sculptural elements, again, with the flags hanging from the light poles, street art furnishings. Something that could go along with this is sort of that tagging, that gritty feel that we had talked about with the rail yard. Just giving you the idea that there are a lot of different directions that you could go, but it's that consistency of brand and emotional connection for the community that's going to make the branding successful. As we go through these other ideas and these subsequent sections of the presentation, we wanted to get sort of your headspace into the Cinder City palette. So this is kind of that rustic railroad tie, exposed metal, industrial window, cream city brick feel that maybe you can layer on top of your vision as my colleagues move forward with the study area and the specific design elements in some of these plots of landing areas.
Hi, my name's Ken Psyche. I'm a landscape architect. I live in Madison, Wisconsin. In looking at the work that Garrett and Alyssa just spoke about and trying to identify the area sort of outlined in green here as Cinder City, how do we do that? How do we establish sort of thresholds so that you understand you're entering into the district? And then as Alyssa spoke of the numerous different elements that support that idea, where do they go and how do we create space for them? And I think what we discovered is that, the other thing that came out of our stakeholder meeting last night was the notion of enhancing the walkability at downtown Altoona. So these slides are really about, these are cartoon sketches of looking at both space and ways of making downtown Altoona, especially Spooner Avenue, a little bit more walkable in terms of the atmosphere and the environment that you create. So this first slide is essentially a sketch of Spooner Avenue looking east. The dark bar on the left is intended to show the overhead transmission line poles and how that area, and then the more commercial industrial space and railroad beyond to the north, and trying to find ways of making Spooner Avenue more beautiful and more walkable. So this is kind of the 66-foot plus or minus right-of-way that we have to work with. And then these become just explorations of looking for space and that space is being delivered by way of, in air quotes, a road diet. So what can we do with the 66-foot corridor that we have, and how can we make that work better for us? And these sketches are intended to be, the different sections could be one continuous idea, or they could be mixed and matched and combined, because that Spooner Avenue corridor is so long. So there may be reason to do option A in some areas, and this one takes both the parking lanes off of Spooner and then restores that space to either side of the roadway, potentially adding to the right side in this drawing 5 or 6 or more feet to the lots that are on the south side of the corridor, and then potentially adding a dedicated off-road bike, two-way bike path on the north, maintaining 2 lanes of traffic. The other thing that the road diet does is it compresses the view of the street. And a friend of mine talks about visual friction. So the ability of, or having elements along the way that get into your peripheral vision as a driver and start to slow you down. So option A is just really squeezing the street to its functional minimum, adding the pedestrian and bicycle amenities, perhaps adding some space to the, again, to the lots on the south side. Option B is looking at, again, taking parking away, but then providing a median in the middle to provide some plantings and, again, creating a little bit more of that visual friction for motorists as they drive along. Option C keeps a parking lane on the south side that might serve the redevelopment of that area, maintaining that idea of a median and planted strip in the middle. And then finally, option D looks at just increasing the space for the terraces on either side, maintaining a parking lane on the south side of the street. Like I said, these can be one size fits all for the whole length of the corridor, or more likely a series of these interventions along the corridor. This is a sketch. Some of our group will talk a little bit more about the development you see on the right side, but this is the no parking median, planted median, and showing how you that tree mass along the median will begin to take those overhead lines and towers out of the picture. Similarly, by the depot, punching the curb lines out into the parking lanes gives us a space for a focal element at the end of the road, the northbound road. Taking some of the parking away from the face of the depot so that it becomes more of a feature within the downtown. And actually a lot of the parking that exists there now is within the right of way. So this is suggesting that maybe there's sort of a linear parkway along of the public way. There could be historic marker, something that talks about the depot in an historic sense in that way. And then going all the way down to 3rd Street and the entrance into the downtown and onto Lynn Avenue, again, taking parking lanes off on the curve here, providing space for this idea of truly a gateway kind of structure, and then also providing again, the constriction of the traveled way for some more visual friction and traffic calming, and creating an entry node for downtown.
So I'm the other Todd Barman. I'm also with UW-Madison Extension. I am the downtown development specialist. I'm going to handle the next few slides to set up my colleague to talk more about increasing the critical mass of businesses and buildings in the downtown. So when we step back and look at The big picture is relates to land use within and around the downtown district or central Cinder City, however you want to coin this area. You'll see currently the gray area is the industrial, the red is zoned as commercial, and then you have the orange here, which is the downtown area, but is essentially the multifamily dwelling zoning class currently. And then you've got two different types of residential classifications underneath. Now, all this is in process of tweaking and revising, but that's why you see the kinds of road alignments and road diet options that Ken has walked you through, with a little bit different style on the north and south side because of the different uses and mixes that are along those areas. So as we look, we had a long conversation as a team about the zoning classification that made the most sense along Spooner as relates to that currently red colored zoned area. So one of the things that we felt most comfortable with, at least in terms of a recommendation, and we're more than happy to continue conversations with you, is looking at that not necessarily just zoned as certainly commercial, but more of the neighborhood mixed use classification that you are considering having used in other parts of the community going forward in the future, particularly for those areas that become annexed to the city. The reason we like this is because the neighborhood mixed use classification allows for a range of single family attached and multifamily housing options that include two-family, twin home, triplexes, quadplexes, townhomes, which we're particularly interested in, and upper story residential uses, above ground floor commercial uses or not. It allows both options. So when we think of that stretch along Spooner Avenue in particular, and we'll show you some key spots here in a little bit. But as you look to increase density of housing in and around downtown, which is often the case in most communities, as you approach downtown, housing becomes more dense. Then that's one of those locations that could happen. The other thing is that district allows commercial uses such as retail, dining, office, personal service businesses to be intermixed with that residential. The idea is to encourage the development of walkable mixed-use environments that serve the day-to-day needs of residents. So it's that residential serving retail and commercial. What it doesn't allow is no new detached single family. And there's other places in the community where that can be employed. Looking at it, the industrial classification, one of the things that we wanted to highlight in our conversation tonight is that the flex industrial zone allows for light manufacturing and what we call maker businesses, which are traditionally part of the downtown business mix and are very appropriate and can be very beneficial to the dynamic within our downtown districts. So it's manufacturing such as the following list below can be encouraged. We want to encourage it or even incentivize it along Spooner Avenue, particular as you get closer in toward the core of downtown. And when we're talking about light manufacturing, the ideal way is light manufacturing that's not just selling out the back door or exporting, that they have a retail component as well. And so items like bakery, which is light manufacturing, gourmet popcorn, ice cream, in particular, not just an ice cream shop that is scooping, an ice cream manufacturer that's making homemade ice cream, but then also has a retail component. Winery, brewery, distillery, woodworking, other kinds of craft maker businesses really become an interest in and around downtowns and still fit that light industrial dynamic and zoning class that you have. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Alex.
Thank you, Todd. My name is Alex Thill. I'm an urban designer located out of Madison. So something that as I start to dive into, like Todd mentioned, we're going to start breaking into some of the areas designated in the Cinder City District. But something that we kind of identified that was important is a zero setback mentality, which allows for higher density. we kind of focused it along Spooner Avenue within the downtown district directly, and then eastward along Lynn Street, as well as for the 2 blocks between First Street East and Third Street East. And we'll have a few examples of townhomes and row houses as we transition to some of that area. So the site plan you're seeing on the screen here is kind of a collection of a little bit of everything we talked about already today. Area number 1 on there, we're looking at a new anchor restaurant, which I'll dive into in a little bit, but something that kind of anchors yourself as you enter the Cinder City District. We looked at an entertainment block, which is the current location of the 2 bars in downtown, and how can that space kind of be expanded to fit other needs and the complementary businesses within downtown. Number 3, the area of Lynn Street, or between Lynn Street First and Third, is the commercial densification. So we viewed this as a great opportunity to offer that boutique retail, that small commercial that we kept hearing about yesterday that would complement businesses already in downtown. Number 4, we looked at a civic campus. So that's kind of right where we are today. How does that interact with some urban green space, and as well as the rest of the development and existing businesses in downtown? Number 5, looking at the expansion of the yard and the container park that's there. We heard yesterday that kids need things to do, right? So kids come with parents. If we have that connection, right, it helps prolong a stay, as well as other interactions within the district. So we started looking at what that might look like. And then number 6, the increased residential density, which we had just talked about. So where would be the best location for some of these townhomes and higher density housing options for downtown? The first area I want to talk about is the new anchor restaurant. It sits on the corner of Spooner, right as you enter the district, right? So we kind of envision it as a sit-down restaurant catering to families. We wanted it to be, or we positioned it specifically on that corner. Here, I can zoom to the next picture here. We positioned it directly on that corner because it offers direct line of sight down Spooner Avenue. And Ken had previously presented on what those options are, as you can see in the image here. But we wanted to create that beacon for people that maybe are using the park, Cinder City Park Sports Complex, to invite people down to downtown, give them a reason to traverse this way, and create a destination for people to use. Good restaurants are a destination business. That's kind of our emphasis behind having this option. And we even started talking about how this development could even be rolled out, kind of as a public-private development. I was talking with Todd a lot. And something that's been very successful, particularly in the restaurant business, is developing it as a public entity that maintains ownership and then leasing that space to a restaurant entrepreneur. That allows the city to maintain control of that use on that corner. And then you avoid seeing flip-flopping, especially in a business that is, or an industry that is as hostile as restauranting. So that was kind of our target for that area. You can see as we go to the west down Spooner, looking at expanded smaller commercial as well as we, kind of up the density in those areas. Just to talk a little bit about the actual design, you can see, we're playing with ideas of what outdoor space might look like, kind of tying it into the rail yard and the Cinder City District idea. It'd be kind of cool if the patio was sitting on top of a train car or, a train car bed. Something you can actually walk up, touch. You can see the industrial components of the machinery underneath. So that was just something fun that we started playing with. Some other areas that we started to look at were the prime redevelopment infill options, primarily the parcels along Lynn Avenue to the west of Rumps. These are some, images of what that looks like today. There's, quite a few missing teeth within this downtown. And an approach to a successful walkable downtown is that filling in the street walls is always a good thing. It brings people down, it provides continuity. The images I just showed you are screaming for it. So looking at how can we eliminate some of the missing teeth? Limiting curb cuts. Curb cuts interfere with pedestrian traffic, makes it feel unsafe. A pattern of open storefronts with lots of transparency. You know, that can be through glass, murals, decorative art, things like that. And then a key component is transitioning each set of the facing blocks. So you can see we kind of have back of house operations in some images. We have front of house operations in another. So by transitioning some of those to face the road, we're allowed to, or it helps activate that space a little bit better. So an image of what we had here is just kind of filling in the space between the Golden Spike and the current county government building. You know, you can fill it in with something like this, you know, something simple. It still allows access to the larger parking area, but yet it starts to fill in some of those teeth with providing, you know, options for commercial spaces or housing type options on top and stuff like that. Here's just a few examples of what, you know, some modern infill might look like. But, you know, infill can also take another approach. So looking at, is it, excuse me, like small site walls, right? That can be an option for infill that helps fill in these missing teeth, that hide parking or helps create that transition between parking so you don't have the harshness of cars parked directly on the sidewalk. Again, it's about making the pedestrian space inviting, increasing walkability, and making it a destination where people feel safe to traverse. So I mentioned townhomes. These are two examples of, you know, what we're envisioning. Smaller scale, 2-story. They're very industrial in nature, material wise. We think that it would complement a lot of the branding that we had talked about. Alyssa had pointed out the palette, you know, a lot of steel, a lot of Core-10. And as we start to transition this district into that palette and that brand, we think this would very much help complement the entryways, the entry gateways as we start to enter the district. So with infill and additional development, there's always the discussion about parking. So something that was important to us as we started to look at developing the entertainment district, as I labeled this, or the entertainment block that I mentioned before, was how can we fit parking within this space more logically, provide green space for that area, so including a few trees, but yet maintaining the functionality for existing businesses. So the key is including parking where people need to be. So we centered that in this district, built out the edges the best we could. And what's interesting about this image is it actually, again, this is a very sketch image, right? But we actually are showing more parking than is currently there today with additional development. So simply by reorganizing, adjusting your spaces, we're actually able to have a net increase of parking in this block alone with additional development. So, you know, that just goes to show that by programming this, we're able to actually increase the benefit while not even losing anything from existing conditions. The next area I want to talk about is the civic campus. So something that we thought was very important to the downtown and creating a place was redeveloping the civic block basically in the building that we're in today. So part of the challenge with the building that we have today, it doesn't quite relate to the street as well. And we're trying to look at it to be served as like a downtown gathering space. So we really wanted to look at something that kind of opens up to the core of downtown, correlates to the next area I'll get to is the public space. Something that, you know, parents might come down here, go to the library, but then they can run across the street to the public space or grab lunch at the yard. And all while being an inviting place for kids, as well as, you know, other community gatherings and community events. So for the public space, you know, we're working on what's already there. So there's a great destination, restaurant collection with the yard. But then what can we do with that green space? And, you know, is that more of a small plaza entry that's more welcoming, enhanced landscaping? Is it simply a nature playground that, you know, something that kids can play on all day today? I was looking out there just to kind of scope it out and see the interaction. And I'm surprised how many kids were digging in the sand, you know, in the volleyball court. So just simply bringing in that natural element, I think would help retain families and kids and give people something to do while they're down here as well. So I guess that was it. Todd, I was going to let you talk a little bit more about this.
Yeah, just thank you. So I'm gonna just jump back to this for just a minute. You'll see here in this particular rendering, we're envisioning even improving the library complex and the city hall complex, what it was City Hall, to be more of a civic space. It could be a civic auditorium, it could be a discovery center, something along those lines in terms of a civic space. With this like penultimate kind of idea involves City Hall moving over to the extension building, which is one of the things that was considered to be an option down in the road. You can also still treat this as a civic campus with the existing buildings. Okay, so there's options along these lines. But, you know, I know that up to this point, the city has thought about, even in the acquisition of the properties across the street from City Hall, of infilling there. And the more we observe that space and the more we think about where you would infill downtown, we just think the mirrored role of having a civic public space, like what you have out at River Prairie, an outdoor gathering space. If you infill there, you lose that. And so we like the paired back the side by side with that here. So as we look at, one of the things you'll see, we've talked, and one of our initial goals was to reach critical mass downtown in terms of built out space, but also business mix. And we really haven't talked so much about the business mix yet. And so I didn't want to leave that. Last night, we asked about what were the downtown anchors. We asked about what the draws were that brought people. There was a lot of signature businesses and attractions that were brought up. And then we talked about what kinds of business uses would complement those. You really do within this region, because you're a growing community. The population of Altoona is growing. In fact, a lot of statistics say that you're the fastest growing community in Wisconsin. The metro region is growing. I'm pretty confident that pretty much if you have the right business with the right entrepreneur, you could probably pull off just about any kind of business in the downtown district, because the market is there, as long as we create a sum total that exceeds the value of the whole, of the individuals. We're trying to create a combination of businesses that work together. So we look at the business mix. Commercial brand is being food, okay? Capital letters, food, and then retail connected to food. So we're talking about the butcher, baker, and the candlestick maker. We're talking about having a bakery downtown, having a specialty grocery, a food co-op or market, ice cream, entertainment that serves the resident infill that we're talking about, that relates also as to food. You have bowling, and I'm not talking a big bowling alley like Wagner's. We're talking about a couple lanes. A movie house, and I'm not talking about a big movieplex. We're talking about a little bit more intimate kind of movie experience. Something bigger than the entertainment room you have at the house, but not quite as big as what you have at the bigger movie theaters. An opening mic stage for comedy shows or music or home talent, and like that Discovery Center. And we're looking at a mix of businesses that feed off of each other and create that destination combination where people say, I just want to go there because there's so much that relates to everything else. And that's what we're really looking to do. And again, it's not this exact mix. I mean, this is not an A to B sort of thing. It's getting a flavor, and it really kind of depends on getting the right entrepreneurs to pull off something that might even be better than these, but still relate to that overall feel for what we're trying to create.
Bringing us home. So I think as we wrap this up, right, lots of ideas. Hopefully y'all are excited. There are things that sparked you a little bit. We as Extension, so the Todds and I are here to support the community as you all want to move forward. If you want to move forward with any of this, I think really the purpose of the design charrette, why I think Mike and Roy and Taylor brought the Todds and these folks here was really to try and be an impetus or a catalyst for the community. And so I think with that, we want to say thank you for having us and hope that you see the value in this type of work. So there is a comment that, excuse me, it was interesting that by reconfiguring parking around the county building, we actually wouldn't lose spots.
Alex and I were pretty excited about that too. I mean, one of the things that I found, I'll just speak for myself, that when I visit a lot of downtowns over the years, and often with districts like this, it's parking management, parking flow, that really has a major impact. And that particular area is one of the more inefficient parking layouts that I've witnessed and come across. And it's largely due to the parking being kind of separately developed because of the private property lines. And the fact is, I think there's an opportunity to develop the parking area shared. I mean, we still know where we own, but let's design, manage the parking system there, and we just all share it. And if my customer parks in your space, that's okay. We're using the same number of spaces throughout, and we're just managing it better. And then you're still able then to add some to that critical mass of building density. So yeah, but it was exciting that we ended up with more parking spaces. And again, that's a rough layout.
Yes.
Any other questions or slides you want to go back to? Ones that you were particularly excited about or troubled by?
This is Mike. Go ahead.
Yep, Mike. You ready, Mike?
Yeah, on the cross sections for Spooner Avenue, you showed the one with parking on the south side, which I'm glad you did that, as we contemplated having some of those smaller formatted businesses on that side. But is there any does that necessitate the bike lane going away somewhere? Am I missing that?
I'm gonna let Ken jump in on that.
It depends on the version. So option C, we're trading some of the space on the north side for the median, and option D, we're keeping that space for the bike path on the north side. So I think again, there are different ways of configuring it, and the section may not be continuous.
Gotcha. I do see the bike lane on the north side now. I think that's great. I like D. I mean, myself. The other question I had was, there's a lot that the city can affect it to move this forward, especially with regard to the container park, streetscape, library, city hall campus, that kind of thing. But as you look to the west down Spooner Avenue, you know, we're looking at established residential along there. And do you have, I mean, how does that happen in real life, that we're able to move that forward in any timely manner, I guess, or do we just wait for attrition? Do we wait for it to happen organically as we start moving from the core and people just get interested from a market perspective? Or do you have any ideas or discussion about that?
One thing that we talked about in the presentation was modifying the zoning for that area to allow for a little bit more flexibility and redevelopment. I think that gives that area time, if needed, to evolve rather than become something right away, I guess.
I think you're right. I think that would be helpful. Yep.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Ken hit my very first one right off the bat. And we had, because the zoning classification that was being considered for there wouldn't have allowed for townhouses. And that's kind of the look and the feel that we think. So now, one other way I think you can start stimulating this is that as you increase the strength of the edge, things will grow on it. So I see that block, and let me forward to it. As we look at, well, we can even look at this picture here. The idea of a restaurant anchor at this particular location, which is currently the county parking lot. The reason we like that is, one, it could potentially even be visible from the sports complex, but it's a community draw from the sport complex or otherwise to come to this location to park and eat, and then hopefully stay parked and walk through the district. But you'll also see that in this particular rendering that you have those commercial spaces. The restaurant becomes an anchor for the commercial spaces that then line zero setback next to that to finish that block off. And the next block, if you can stimulate that to be the first example of the townhouses, so you set the stage for it, then now you've created that system where it's starting to work next to downtown. And then I think it's going to make it more possible in the minds of both developers and the people who own those properties that they can continue that down the street, because we've got the example set. So I think on this end, those first two blocks, you might have to have a little bit more incentive work. One, make sure that the zoning allows it, which what we proposed should do that. But then these two blocks might need a little bit more involvement, which is why that idea we had for the public being more, and it's not, when we say public, it's not necessarily just City Hall, but it could be a public foundation or another kind of corporation who is involved in helping to develop that restaurant anchor that then becomes the stimulus for that. And then that's on this side of it. But so once you start setting the stage, and then on the other end on Lynn toward Third, that item number 6 on this, again, this is that first stretch there is the one that's the most obvious. And again, maybe we have a little bit more of an incentive to kind of kick it off there, and then it spills from that, if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, good answer. Thank you.
Okay.
What about this idea of winter, focusing on the Four Seasons element of the container park and what we can do to help with that?
I think that winters aren't what they used to be. The temperatures aren't what they used to be. I know we had a lot of conversations about ice, but there's a lot of programming that you can do, and to get the yard, the open space, and this new civic complex to work together programming. You can have winter activities. You can have an art mart, the holiday fair. You can take the lawn games and make them winter games using snow, sculpture, all kinds of fun events. You can put fire pits out there once you have a snow cover and everything. You could, depending on the winter, you could use artificial ways of skating. You can put boards down, instead of just thinking about ice skating, we can think about inline skating. Most of the inline skaters are really good ice skaters. So there's a number of things. It doesn't have to be ice. And then inside the building, in addition to holiday fairs, events, we talked about movies. So in the summertime, you have movies out at the yard. In the wintertime, you have movies at the Civic Center. So there's a lot of things that programming can draw people. And after I come to see a movie or before, I have a bite, I go shopping, whatever, have a cup of coffee. So I think the programming of the civic campus is more than just government. It's really a community gathering place. So between those two sides of the road, you have a very powerful critical mass of attracting and programming public events.
Any other questions online or in person?
I like the,
Go ahead.
The image that showed that, that gateway on Third Avenue on the east end. And then for the west end is the thought that having the road diet and having like that restaurant further down to the east, like that's kind of what's acting as a visual draw.
So what we're trying to do is really create a sense of arrival so that people know you're now in the Cinder City, you know, the core district of the downtown of Altoona. And so ways of doing that, you know, the tricks of the trade have to do with focal points, drawing attention, playing off of our history and our values and some of our hopes for the future, to be all honest. And what distinguishes us from other communities and other areas, right? So in this particular gateway coming in from Spooner, what we're trying to do is narrow the focus, put your eyes on it's a smaller scale water tower, a railroad water tower that might say, welcome to Cinder City, Altoona. And then you have the depot right there. We would suggest, if we could fix up the depot, if we could put a new coat of paint on it, that'd be great. Or even let us project at night colors on it, or even moving pictures of what it used to look like back in the day. We don't even have to touch it. We could just project images onto it, right? Digitally. And then we're looking here at, trying to get slow people down. You want to make those crosswalks as short a distance as travel as possible. That's why I kind of like this one with the median and the trees down the center, is because it's giving you a safe spot halfway down across the road to stop at if you need to. And then this other idea and then here you can see, top down looking at the depot area, we've increased the amount of green space there too. So we do have some area where we can play around with maybe some artifacts from the railroad industry. You could put a caboose there, have people be able to crawl around on that, or just, a truck to see what one looks like sitting there. There's just so many things you could do with that space that would play off of the history, but and call attention to the fact this is a really neat public realm. And then this too is really just, again, we're trying to get that. We're doing a road diet. We're narrowing this down. We're slowing traffic down because they're whipping around this as they come into the downtown now. And so what we want people to do is to slow down, pay attention. You're now here in Altoona, and you have that beautiful backdrop of rail cars. You don't have to build rail cars; they're right there. So you have this wonderful, you're here. We put some of these signal lanterns or whatever from railroad industry as ways of creating. It's really a bollard to help protect the pedestrian. And then up above is just a really simple metal work that probably your high school shop could fabricate with a little bit of assistance. And install. And the other thing that it does too, where we located it, helps hide some of the wires that would be up above there too. So that actually is a screening device for the power lines that go across there.
So if you look at the plan, some gateways are very literal. We just talked about the Altoona metalwork and the railroad. There's no question. It's a portal. But if I could get you to look at the number 6 in the plan. So by taking the single family pattern and the architecture and the spaces and the yards and the gardens, you have a certain rhythm. So as you approach to the edge of Cinder City, the fact that these row houses now become a very different architectural expression. So you're not passing through it, you're passing along it. So as that rhythm, the fabric of the residential use starts going from boom, boom, boom to boom, 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 you start feeling that as you walk, as you ride, as you drive. So that's a very powerful way of creating another gateway to the downtown.
Yeah, and something that's just, this has kind of been best practices for probably a couple hundred years now, is you want your downtown to be the center of the universe for your community. It's supposed to be the heart, the soul, the most intense amount of uses and multiple uses, and it to be a safe place to be and walkable. Before we start spreading our downtown out along Spooner and other areas, we really got to make sure that the core itself remains a focal point. And so that's kind of tricky business here, because it's not always the easiest thing to build there either. And so you'll have to be strategic and think about, what makes the most sense There's definitely trade-offs in any decision-making. Some of these things that we're presenting, are incredibly expensive and would take many years to move that needle. Other things are not. It's just a matter of, what are priorities, what's easy, what does the community, have the political will for now, as opposed to later? Which of these ideas or concepts might bring you the most bang for the buck? Sometimes one particular strategy yields multiple results in ways that others don't. And so it's what we're just trying to do is show you from an outside perspective what professional urban designers and planners and landscape architects do when they think about downtowns and when they think about city planning and how it pertains to what you've told us you want Altoona to be like. So these aren't buildable plans. These are just, a quick take look at it using our professional expertise.
I think you guys did a fantastic job. I'm just saying, sitting here with Roy saying, wow, you really did distill down.
UW Extension was excited to jump into this because you had multiple challenges for us to wrap our heads around in a very short amount of time. And you have an incredibly talented staff and a very committed council and stakeholder group that made this much easier on us. That's for sure. And again, I can't thank enough the folks who are sitting in the room with me who have volunteered their time to be.
Oh, no doubt.
It's been fantastic. We had a lot of fun and we worked really hard.
Clearly, we're very grateful.
Thank you, you guys.
So cool.
You're welcome, and thank you as well.